Okay, so yesterday I uploaded a Amiga Forever 10 setup guide, and it was pretty much a showcase of showing you what Amiga Forever can do. And then I suddenly realized that it's not since June this year that I released an Amiga Retrobat setup, but of course I was missing the Amiga CD32 console, and I was also missing the Commodore CDTV. So both of these systems were big commercial failures. CD32 was debatable. It released in 1993, and by 1994, Commodore went out of business. So, whether or not Amiga CD32 was destined for big things in the future if Commodore stuck around, that's debatable. Of course, we have the PlayStation just around the corner, so I'm pretty sure PlayStation would have likely wiped the floor with CD32, I'm afraid to say. And then, of course, the Commodore CDTV was released in the early 90s prior to the CD32, and that's got a bit of odd history in itself, but it wasn't strictly aimed as a gaming console as such. The early 90s, when CD-ROM technology came in, was a very experimental time. Lots of high prices, such as the Panasonic 3DO, the Gold Star 3DO, the Philips CDI. So a lot of businesses was playing around with this new technology, hence the very expensive prices at the time. So what I'm going to do in this setup guide then is start off with Amiga CD32 and get you started running some games with that. And I'm also going to finish off the video with Commodore CDTV. So besides a massive load of nonsense pretty much released for the Commodore CDTV, there is actually a couple of decent worthwhile games to look at on that platform. So in this setup guide, I'm going to do my usual, just get you up running and also do some video settings and all the files that you need and also file extensions. So check this one out. Okay then, so first things first, like I always say at the start of my videos, if you like what you see today, be sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like to my channel. I do a whole lot of different setup guides for front-end systems, Retrobat being my most popular these days, as well as Launchbox, Batacera, I even do Raspberry Pi today, Retroarch and lots more. So like I said at the start of the video, if you like Amiga, check out Amiga Forever, which I released yesterday, and also take a look at my micro emulation playlist, because at this point I've covered so many Amiga setup guides for different things, and that's worth your time looking for. So we're looking at Amiga CD32 first. So what we're going to do, like I always do, is suggest you go to your Retrobat shortcut, right click, open file location, and inside file location, you are going to find Bat GUI. A very good tool to use if you're new to Retrobat. This is going to get you to grips with particular things such as game file extensions that we need to get our games running through Retrobat. So go to System List, and at the top here we got System. And under system, this is going to name every system that Retrobat covers. So if you don't see this just here, and sometimes this can be the case, just take a look at my full setup guide of Retrobat, and there's probably some prerequisite installations that you need to do, and that's the reason this isn't showing up. So just open system, and what we're looking for is CD32, and CD32 is going to be named Amiga CD32. So if we open that up, we can see we got .iso, .cso, .zip, .7zip, .lha. Now, .lha is actually what's known as a WHD load game. We also got .rp9, and .rp9 is actually associated with Amiga Forever. We got CHD. Now, .chd files are probably your best bet. .chd files largely takes away a lot of the size of your games, so it's worth looking into converting your games into that format. We got .ccd and .nrg, and right at the bottom .mds. For Libretro cores, which is Retroarch, we got PUAE, but we can also download and install the very cool WinUAE to run CD32 within Retrobat. So that's what we need. And whilst I'm thinking of it, somebody asked me the other day, they got Amiga Forever, and I talk about Amiga Forever a lot. This is where you get your Kickstart files from, blah, blah, blah. So let me just show you whilst I think of it where and how to get these files from Amiga Forever. If you've got this, then just right click on your shortcut, open file location, and in here you should see Amiga files. Inside Amiga files, you'll find a shared folder, and in your shared folder, you've got several different folders here. So ADF, you've got lots of different files which can be used across multiple different emulation platforms, such as WinUAE or PUAE, whatever. And if we go down into the ROM folder, this is where you're going to find all your Kickstart ROMs. So if you do have Amiga Forever, and I recommend you getting it for this reason alone, that's how you get those. But we're looking at CD32 now, and I've got these Kickstart files that I need. But before I start transferring these, let me show you a really easy way of finding out which BIOS files you need within Retrobat. So just open up Retrobat. Okay, so we're inside Retrobat, and the easiest way to find out which BIOS files particular platforms need or systems need is just pressing Start in my case, which opens up Main Menu. And from here, go into Game Settings, and I press up on my D-pad, which takes me straight to the bottom, and just go into Missing BIOS Check. And this is going to be the complete checklist of all the BIOS files that Retrobat needs for particular systems. So in this case today, we're doing CD32 and Commodore CDTV. And this is the entire list of all the BIOS files that you need for this. So just make a note of those or take a photo with your phone to get to know which files you need here. And let's close out of this and quit. So I've got my Kickstarts inside my Kicks folder just here. And of course, Kickstart ROMs referred to as BIOS files in Retrobat, but these are Kickstart ROMs. So we got all of these just here, and I'm going to just right click and go to copy. Now inside Retrobat shortcut, open file location, we're going to paste those Kickstarts inside of BIOS. Right click and left. Now those files are now copied inside, and we're pretty much good to go in that sense. And if we back out of here and go to ROMs, under ROMs, you're going to find Amiga CD32. So I've got a couple Amiga CD32 games, and if you're not too sure about Amiga CD32 games, let's just say, in essence, they're Amiga 1200 games, because that's what the Amiga CD32 was. It was just marketed as a gaming console, but it's pretty much the equivalent of Amiga 1200. So I've got my games here, CD32 games, and these are in zipped file extension. And if we go inside these, we've actually got Q. But we're going to just drag these zips inside. So I've got Chuck Rock 2 and Kids Chaos. And both of these were, of course, released originally on the Amiga. So, like I say, there was a lot of Amiga, say 500 to 1200 games for the CD32. So as we just established using BAT GUI, these zip files are going to work just fine. So just remember and get in the habit of going to System List, System, and in this case, Amiga CD32. And as we can see, we got .zip just here. So just get into the habit of using that tool because it's really worthwhile. So what we're going to do is go to Retrobat. Okay, so we're inside Retrobat. We got Amiga CD32. So I'm going to just grab some artwork in preview videos. So main menu, scraper, and scrape now, and just wait for that to do its thing. And by the way, if anyone asks, this theme I'm using is called A Touch of Glass. And if you can't download this particular theme, which is very, very cool, I did a manual setup theme guide a little while back, so check that one out. So scraping has now been finished. Update game list to apply changes. So main menu, game settings, update game list, and press on yes. And here we go. So we got Chuck Rock 2 and Kids Chaos. And what I'm going to do first is show you the options you got here to run these. So if I press select, which opens up view options, advanced system options, under emulator, we have got Libretto PUAE, which is a fork of WinUAE, but just a core version. And we can also use WinUAE CD32. So I'm going to just go to WinUAE CD32 and we need to install this one. So if I open this up with WinUAE CD32, back out, and I'm going to open up my game, I'm going to open up Chuckrock 2, and it's going to ask us to install WinUAE. So just press yes.
Welcome, gamesters, to Chuck Rock 2.
So as you can see, Chuckrock 2 works okay with the WinUAE, what we just installed, but I do find it does lag just a touch. So I recommend going to View Options, Advanced System Options, and under Emulator, just using the Retro PUAE with this. I find it's a bit more fluid. Plus, you've got many more options for video settings and controller settings here. So let's open this up with the default, which is the PUAE, and I'm going to open up Kid Chaos this time. So as you can see, Kids Chaos works fine. So if you're a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan and you've not heard of Kids Chaos, check this one out. It's a very cool game. So let's look at the options we got for using PUAE to run our CD32 games. If we go to View Options, Advanced System Options, under shader set, we got multitude of options here to use. So shader sets work a little bit like filters. So it almost applies a filter to how the game looks. So I quite like curvature these days or enhanced, but there's other shaders here to use such as scan lines, and those are very popular. So I'm going to put this one on enhanced for this. Decorations, just a minute ago, you'll notice that on the sides of the game, we had this what's called decoration, and you can get rid of this or apply a different range of decorations. So if you want to use a decoration, just bear in mind that your aspect ratio will need to be kept at a 4:3. If you put one of these decorations on and then apply, say, a 16:9 ratio, it's going to cut out a lot of your gameplay. So I'm, for a change, going to check out Ambiance Monitor 1084s. So this is actually looks like a Commodore monitor. So going to put that one on. Game aspect ratio, like I said, if you're going to be using a decoration, then just put this one to 4:3. Integer scaling, I'm going to put this one to on. That's going to just enhance the image a little bit so it's not so pixelated. Vertical sync to yes. And vertical sync, for those not aware, that's just going to reduce screen tear should you get any. And if we go down to internal resolution, we can bump this one up to 1440p. So it's right now using 360p. So if you want to make the games look a lot better, 1440p is the way to go, and it's not too demanding on your hardware either. And under visual rendering, we got smooth games by linear filtering. I'm going to put this one on, and of course that's going to clean up the game even further. And if we go down to color depth, we can put this one on 24-bit, so we got more vibrance in colors that we see on the gameplay. Now, importantly, if you find a game doesn't boot up, then it's going to be under drivers, and you can try testing this out if you do come across that problem. Under video, you've got lots of what's called backends here, or video in this case. So by default, this is running with OpenGL. If you don't find success with running any games, say you get a black screen, test out the other ones. Another popular one to use is Vulkan, but my games run fine with OpenGL, so I just leave this to auto. And if you get any issues with your game sound, then under audio, you can also change the audio drivers. So direct sound, for example, you can choose that, but I'm going to just leave mine on auto for this. And also under controllers, whilst we're in drivers, if one of your controllers don't work, then it's worth swapping to X input if your controllers don't work for CD32. Again, by default, it's going for the SDL driver. So for me, it works fine, but for you, it might be different. So yeah, I'm going to leave this to SDL. So let's check out one of these games now. I'm going to go back to Chuck Rock 2 because I've not yet opened that one up with PUAE.
Gamesters to Chuck.
So I think that's a little bit unplayable, and there's quite a good likelihood that if we just mess around with video settings, we can actually get that to fit. But just for the sake of this setup guide and easiness, advanced system options, and I'm going to change decorations to something else. So let's take a look at this arcade 1980s decoration. So this time I'm going to boot up Kids Chaos. Let's take a look at this with these video settings now applied. So as you can see, that's looking pretty cool as it stands. If you don't want decoration and you prefer a full screen mode, then just go back to view options, advanced system options, shader set, you're going to want to put this to none. And underneath game aspect ratio, just put this one onto either custom or full. I quite like custom, so check that one out. And also just be sure to get rid of decorations, put that one to none. And just once again, let's check out Kid Chaos in this full screen mode. And bear in mind, we still got a couple of settings there to enhance the video. So that's with custom, and if we go back once again, and this is going to be the final time, just advanced system options, game aspect ratio, check this one out on full. So as you can see, by using the full option, it is bigger, but things might be stretched in certain games. So that concludes the Amiga CD32 part of this setup guide. So next I'm going to be checking out Commodore CDTV, and don't be put off, I'm going to check out a really cool game for this one. So then we're looking at the Commodore CDTV right now. So firstly, if you don't know much about the Commodore CDTV, it's actually inside Retrobat as Amiga CDTV. But I'm going to say I don't have any criticisms towards Retrobat, but this is actually Commodore CDTV, not Amiga CDTV. So the CDTV was ridiculously high price when it came out. It launched it at $1,000, obviously in America, and in today's money, that's roughly just over $2,000. And of course, just like the CD32, which I've just covered, the Commodore CDTV was pretty much an Amiga 500, and you could buy extra peripherals with this, such as the keyboard and floppy disk drive, and this and that, and even a monitor. And you got to admire the setup of this. As you can see from my wallpaper, it's pretty sexy. So we're looking at CDTV, and the Kickstart files that I've just put inside a Retrobat BIOS folder, these are also going to cater for CDTV as well. So I've got a few games in here, and like I said just a minute ago, I do have a good couple of games here. I'm going to show you a bit of Fun School Free for 5 to 7-year-olds because, to be fair, there was a lot of this type of thing on the CDTV. So what I'm going to do is just go to Retrobat and open file location. And firstly, I'm going to go to Bat GUI, System List, and System. And here we go. So we got Amiga CDTV, and like I just said, it's actually Commodore CDTV, but whatever, it does the same thing. So extensions for this are going to be very similar to CD32. So we got .q, .iso, .cso, Amiga Forever's own RP9 format, .ccd, .nrg, .mds, .zip, and .7zip. And according to this is only going to work with the PUA Retroarch and the Retro Core, which is already up and running in Retrobat. So let's come out of this, and we don't need Bat GUI any longer. And like I said, under BIOS, we've got our BIOS files already in place. And as we can see, one of these actually includes CDTV. So come out of here and down to ROMs. I'm going to find the Amiga CDTV folder. So just open that, and I'm going to drag my 3 games in, including Fun School Free. So those are now in my Retrobat ROMs Amiga CDTV folder. We no longer need this open. Let's just go into Retrobat. And here we go. So we now have Commodore CDTV. Let's take a quick look and quickly grab some artwork. So main menu, scraper, scrape now. Just give this a few seconds, just like the CD32 took. And whilst we're waiting for that to load, if we go to view options, advanced system options, emulator, we can actually use WinUAE in there as well. But from personal experience, I do recommend Libretro PUAE for this. So I'm going to leave this on auto. And now our scraping is finished, we can go to main menu, game settings, update game list, and really update game list. Yes. And here we go then. So we scraped the artwork and preview video for Turrican. So obviously Turrican was a big Amiga game, Amiga 500 game, even C64, massive game back in the day. We've got a point and click adventure here, which is Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade. And my Fun School Free for 5 to 7 year olds doesn't have any. And that's probably down to naming conventions. So if you do come across a game like this, just edit the text from your game file. So I'm going to go for Terracon first and view options, advanced system options. And just like the CD32, by using Libretro PUAE, we have a lot more options in terms of visuals, but everything here is set to auto. So let's check this Terracon out on default settings. So as you can see, Terracon works just fine, and what a great game that still is after all these years. So we're going to go back to video settings for this. So view options, advanced system options. And like I say, just make sure you use Libretro PUA for this. It does work best, I find. So same deal with CDTV, is shader set. I'm going to show you curvature for this. And I'm going to go to decorations and I'm going to put this one to none. And game aspect ratio, I'm going to put this one actually to full for this one. Integer scaling, I'm going to turn this one to on just to give us a little bit more of a blur around those pixelated images that we see on screen. Vertical sync, always put this one to yes to take away any screen tear. Auto configure controllers, just make sure this one's on. And internal resolution, just like CD32, we've got the ability to go up to 1440p for CDTV. So we're going to go down to visual rendering, bilinear filtering. I'm going to switch this one to on. So that's going to make things a bit more blurred and not so jagged around the edges. Color depth, just like CD32, 24-bit, which is going to add much more color to our games. And the same really for drivers under video. If you find a game isn't booting, then there's a good chance you'll have to swap the backend's driver over what's known as the backend. So default is OpenGL, which seems to work for most of these CDTV games. But if it doesn't work, just try another option out, such as Vulkan or a DirectX version. But I'll leave this to OpenGL again. And the same deal with audio. If you find audio isn't working, then it's worth checking out the different driver backends here. And same with controllers. If a game isn't working with your controller, swap over to X input. As default, this is running SDL. So I'm going to go back into Turrican again. I'm not going to check out Fun School Free. I don't want to deprive you of that one. I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who wants to check out Fun School Free for 5 to 7 year olds by yourself. So let's go back into Turrican again and see how these video settings look. And there we go. So, you know what? I'm actually going to do you a favor. I'm going to go into Fun School Free.
Well done.
So I think that's enough for Fun School Free. And some of you might be pleased to know this is actually getting remastered, and I think this one's going to beat this year's Call of Duty. So just to let you know that. So that's it for today's dual setup guide for Amiga CD32 and Commodore CDTV. Like I said at the start of the video, if you like what you see today, be sure to hit notifications and subscribe and like so you don't miss up and coming Retrobat content and other bits and pieces for emulation, retro emulation that I cover here on my channel, just Jamie. Also, check me out on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But until next time, stay retro.